Hello, my name is David. I'm from Stoke-on-Trent in central England. I'm currently working as a patient representative with the ROWTATE research project, which is testing whether specialist support from an occupational therapist and clinical psychologist helps people return to work after injury. It's now May 2022 and I'll talk about my recovery journey so far following a brain injury in July 2015. 7 years ago, at the age of 45, I was on a leisure bicycle ride when a 40-mile-per-hour car collided with me. I smashed into the car's windscreen with my head. Thankfully, I was wearing a helmet. I lay comatose in the road before being transported by air ambulance to the nearest suitable hospital. I underwent neurosurgery to relieve the blood pressure building up in my brain, following which I remained in a coma for 28 days. After emerging from my coma, I spent 6 days with a neurological disorder named locked-in syndrome. All I was able to physically do was move my eyes, though I was aware of things around me and could understand spoken words. I spent a further 12 weeks in hospital for rehabilitation until I became independent of needing nursing care, and I was delighted to be discharged home. I had the expectation that my biggest challenges were behind me. As it turned out, I spent the first few months at home doing little more than getting through each day. I didn't exhibit any outward disabilities, but my brain didn't feel like my own anymore, and I just couldn't do stuff. While viewing this video, it'll be impossible for you to reconcile the contented face in front of you with the person I was in those first few months of recovery at home. I felt unable to do most of the ordinary things that used to be second nature. Like many folk who've experienced a severe brain injury, I was learning to become familiar with the new me. Personally speaking, my biggest ordeal was having no vocational routines in my life. By vocational, I mean work or academic study or a hobby, something of worth to keep me occupied. I knew this outcome wasn't through laziness. I was simply, but indescribably, unable to do things. At this point, I genuinely thought I'd never drive a car, go to work or be independent. I felt like a passenger in my life journey rather than the driver. After a year of doing relatively little with myself, I recognised that I desperately needed a daily purpose. Returning to my previous job in IT security was an entirely unrealistic proposition. Instead, I became determined to look into voluntary sector opportunities. It's the most rewarding decision of my life. I started out with dog walking, then helping out in the storeroom of a local charity shop. I progressed to a befriending role with the Royal Voluntary Service, which entailed me sitting and chatting with elderly people who were lonely. I then undertook the role of an IT buddy at my local library, which involved assisting the elderly or unskilled to use the shared computers. I've helped create dozens of Gmail accounts and organised numerous people's photos on their mobile phones into libraries. These activities weren't particularly challenging for me, but my enthusiasm for the tasks and meeting lots of new people helped me to regain a sense of life purpose. The boost in my feelings of self-worth during my year of volunteering indirectly led me to resume my career in IT. This happened in July 2017, a full 2 years after my injury. Following my return to work, I continued for 2 further years. However, during this period, I observed that I was unable to retain any new technology skills I attempted to learn, so this line of work had to come to an end. I'll paint a little more balanced picture of my recovery state, rather than lead you to think I've made a perfect recovery. I should mention that I haven't tasted food for 7 years, and the only smells I've recognised during that period are unpleasant ones. I'm also in possession of a short-term memory that's as much use as a chocolate teapot. With brutal honesty, there's a strong likelihood that you won't recover to be exactly as you were prior to your traumatic event. If this happens to be your outcome, please learn to accept your new self. Personally speaking, my mindset isn't to dwell on the negatives. I prefer to recognise and appreciate the things in life that I can do. I'll shortly bring this chat to a conclusion. If you've recently experienced a traumatic event, you might be in a hospital ward pondering what your immediate future looks like. Or maybe you've been discharged home and are thinking along the lines of, what should I do next? I just feel so aimless. I personally found that occupational therapists led me along a path out of the trauma wilderness and back to what I considered normality. My favourite OT role definition is thus: occupational therapists help people to regain the function needed to be independent and lead a fulfilling life. Please make every effort to fully engage with OTs whenever they appear on your radar. I'll reiterate that the help and support I received from OTs was vital in helping me make such a meaningful recovery and get back to work. This kind of support will only be provided by the NHS if it can be shown to be effective, and this is what the ROWTATE project is trying to do. If you're invited to take part in the ROWTATE study, please do so if you can, so that more injured people can be helped to return to work in the future. And that's the end of this video. Goodbye.